Brethren, put on the armor of God, that you might withstand the devil.
This is a very troubled woman, hissing at the side of a church.
The woman's parish wishes to attempt a solemn sacrament.
You mean an exorcism? You would like me to perform it?
No, some poor other soul already has that distinction.
We are the Lord's army in this battle.
Feel we should forego the restraints.
She is touched by something otherworldly.
What if what she really needs is a doctor?
We are paying a price for your lack of faith.
By your holy resurrection,
deliver us, O Lord.
Something is happening, and it's affecting all of us.
What you are doing is failing. The sisters are traumatized. I want to shut this down.
I feel like I'm being drawn into something. I can't sleep, I can't think.
For us to be divided, it is for us to fall. We are the ones that stand in the breach and hold back the darkness.
It is he who commands you. Look at the light, Emma! See the cross of the Lord. Reveal yourself.
Emma?
Emma?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, possessed teenage girls. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How the hell are you doing, Mike?
I'm mostly good, a little under the weather. Last night I started getting symptoms of a head cold and woke up with one, so I'm hoping that at least by the end of the week I'll be better, because it's a 3-day weekend and I don't really want to spend it sick, but we'll see about that. Also with us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, so I guess before we get into like what we're covering, I guess we can do a little housekeeping on the fact that we are not covering Megan 2.0, which was the original plan, but I think after at least two of us seen it, yeah, it's just not horror. Like, it's not even trying to be. It's firmly like what, kind of like actiony, I guess.
I mean, it's a sci-fi action movie, 100%. I'd say 95%. I will give a little bit of concession to one of the scenes early in the movie when Amelia basically goes after her maker. You remember that scene in the hotel room? That's like the only scene of actual stalking in the whole movie. And then she actually like kills him fairly violently, but that's it. Literally one scene that you could make an argument has horror overtones to it. But yeah, overall, I mean, if you guys have seen the trailer gives everything away. It is absolutely a sci-fi action movie. They do something which, you know, I don't think this is much of a spoiler because I think the trailer kind of gives it away, but they do something that I absolutely hate when horror franchises do, when they try to take a villain and try to make him a hero. They did that recently with 3 from Hell, where for the third act of that film, the Fireflies were actually the protagonists going up against that Mexican cartel. I hate shit like that. I absolutely hate it.
No,
and
that's not the only issue with that movie, though.
Oh, no, not at all. Oh, no. Not remote.
I know what you mean, but yeah, let's not pretend that's the only issue with it.
Definitely. But that's just a pet peeve that I have. You know, when franchises, they establish these great or at least above average horror villains, and then they try to make them the hero in subsequent sequels. I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. So yeah, like the whole time I'm sitting there watching Megan 2.0, I'm like, why am I sitting here? Like after 20 minutes, I wanted to leave the theater. after 40 minutes, I wanted to leave the theater. After an hour, I wanted to leave the theater. I'm like, I know we're not reviewing this, but it's just one of those things where I'm there. I might as well see it. Plus, who knows? Maybe the movie will end with some bombastic horror set piece, but nope, not at all. So, yeah, it made our decision easy for this week.
Yeah, and I'll actually kind of concede that I liked it a little bit better than I was expecting to, but only because there were certain parts where I thought it was gonna like lean into just being like totally goofy. Like that's it's almost a weird compliment because it was so not a horror movie that I was like, "Oh, are they going completely like B movie funny over the top absurd?" But they didn't even lean into that hard enough to like give it full-fledged credit. I felt like they tried to pull back from that on too many occasions to be like, "Oh no, we're actually still gonna try to be like serious drama too." And I was like, "Why are you doing that? It was better when you were just being goofy." But
On the good side though, since this movie tanked at the box office, if you don't know already, Megan 2.0 only pulled in $10 million. That's not even its budget. It didn't even make its budget back. So yeah, thankfully we won't have to deal with a third Megan movie. So that'll be the end of this franchise.
yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I just wanted to open because, like, I think we were pretty convinced at the time that we'd be doing it. So it just,
Yeah.
because we don't always do this at the beginning when we change our movie, but I figured since Megan 2 was like a bigger release, it would have been more conclusive that we were going to do it regardless. But it was like it's just totally not a horror movie. So, anyways, we kind of went around VOD looking around, and I'm not even gonna like mince words. There wasn't like a whole lot of candidates. Now that's keeping in mind that we try to do stuff that's like fresh, as in like at least like no older than a few weeks old. So like there wasn't a whole bunch of things available without having to go like further back. So what we landed on and decided on was The Ritual, which is supernatural drama horror thrillers where it's billed as starring Al Pacino, which I assume everybody's familiar with. What he's doing in this movie, I don't know. We'll get into that. But, anyways, two priests, one in crisis with his faith and the other confronting a turbulent past, must overcome their differences to perform a risky exorcism. I have never seen a movie about an exorcism with a troubled priest that's in a crisis of faith.
Oh my
God. Okay.
You know what? I've never seen an exorcism movie where one of the priests is a schooled exorcist and the other one doesn't know what he's doing. That was so original.
Yeah. Wow. That's I guess a preview for our general thoughts, but we will get into those right now. Venom, what did you think of The Ritual?
All right, folks. Excuse me here. Let's see. I'm going to be comparing this movie a lot to The Pope's Exorcist from a couple of years ago. Now, if you guys remember, that movie had a lot of similarities to this movie. It's an original IP in the exorcism subgenre, starring an Oscar-winning, legendary actor. That one, of course, starred Russell Crowe. This one, of course, stars Al Pacino. So, if I end up comparing this to The Pope's Exorcist a little too much, please forgive me, bear with me, but it's about the only thing that I can really compare it to, at least, modern days anyway. So I'm going to say that this movie, despite all the negative things that I'm going to say, this movie is not objectively bad. This movie is just color by numbers. If you've seen an exorcism movie in the past, then you've probably seen The Ritual. Like, this movie is incredibly color by numbers. Every single quote unquote ritual or exorcism that's performed in the movie, we've seen in countless other movies. The voices, the speaking in tongues, the rolled back eyes, glossed over, the black eyes. Everything we see here, we've seen before. So the movie has to rely on its performances. And despite this movie having Al Pacino, Dan Stevens, and Ashley Greene, I'm sorry to report that I wasn't really impressed with any performances in this movie. Now, as far as Dan Stevens goes, playing Father Joseph Steiger, he's the younger priest who's doesn't even really believe in demonic possession. He is convinced throughout this entire film that this girl has a mental health issue and that she just needs a doctor. Well, I don't know. Just this guy was so ignorant throughout the movie. And I'm trying not to blame Dan Stevens because I like Dan Stevens a lot. His performance in this movie isn't bad. It's his character that's bad. I don't like his character. Like literally after performing 4 or 5 different rituals where he's witnessed supernatural events during all of them, he is still vehement that this girl is not possessed, that she needs a doctor, she needs a psychiatrist. And I'm just like, did you not see a woman get her scalp ripped off? Did you not see a woman mysteriously have her hand crushed? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense that Father Steiger is this pig-headed and just this stubborn that he didn't want to believe his own eyes. And obviously the character is having a crisis of faith, throughout the film, which is kind of changing the way he's looking at the exorcism. I understand all of that, but just, man, I love Dan Stevens, but I just hate this character. I really, really hate it. Let's go to Al Pacino now. Al Pacino playing, and I love this name, Father Theophilus Reisinger. Now, this movie, by the way, for those who don't know, this movie is based on a true story. This is a real exorcism that was performed by these two fathers, Father Theophilus and Father Steiger. With a real world woman, and at the end of the movie they actually give us a little text crawl to kind of give us the what happens afterwards, like did Emma go on to live a happy life, did Father Steiger stay with the church, stuff like that, which obviously I won't give away now. But my God, Al Pacino, like, first of all, the real world Father Theophilus is German, and I did not catch that Al Pacino's accent was German in this movie. First of all, Theophilus is a Greek name, and obviously Theophilus is not the real name of this priest. I think he was born Xavier Reisinger, and then when he became a priest, he took the name Theophilus. So he's using a Greek name, which I actually did look up the origin. Like I said, it's ancient Greek, and the literal translation is friend of God. So Theophilus stands for friend of God in ancient Greek. So hence why he chose that name. As I'm watching the movie, I'm just like, is this guy Russian? Is this guy Jewish? Like, I could not place the accent. And then I come home and I look up, the real man, and I see that he's German. And I'm like, nope, I would not have picked out German. Russian, Siberian, Israeli, like an old. I mean, he sounds like Mel Brooks at times. That's why I thought he was a Jew. And it's like, well, wait a minute, he's a priest. He's a Catholic priest, so he's obviously not Jewish. But he sounded like Mel Brooks. So, like I said, kudos to Pacino for trying to emulate this guy's accent. But whatever. I've never heard the real man speak, so I can't really voice if this is a good impression or not, but it just left me scratching my head throughout the movie. Okay, our possessed girl, Emma, played by Abigail Collin. She does a decent job, but it's very, again, I'm going to use this term a lot this episode, so please, bear with me. She's just a very color by numbers, possessed girl. She's already possessed when the movie starts, so we don't even get to spend any time with her. And that's one of the things that I feel this movie missed out on. Some of the best exorcism movies, we spend time with the victim before they are possessed. Think Linda Blair in The Exorcist. Think Jennifer Carpenter in The Exorcism of Emily Rose. We actually get to spend time with them first. So then when they're possessed, there's an emotional attachment. I actually care about Linda Blair and her safety. I actually care about Jennifer Carpenter and her safety. In this movie, we don't spend any time with this girl at all, so there's no emotional bond. Like, I almost don't care. It's like, obviously, I don't want to see an innocent girl die at the hands of a demonic possession, but I don't have an emotional attachment, so I almost don't care that much because it just goes right into it. The person that we're supposed to have the emotional attachment with, like I said, Father Joseph Steiger, I just found him to be just a wishy-washy, weak-minded, unprepared priest. And obviously, when you watch the film, you realize that he didn't want this exorcism to take place in his parish, blah, blah, blah. But then he's kind of, his hands are tied. But then once everything starts, he just turns into a bowl of jello. And it almost got annoying after a while. The constant yelling at the possessed girl and the constant running out of the room, you know, when something he didn't like happens. Or it just, yeah, it started to get kind of annoying. Like you're a fucking Catholic priest. How do you not believe in the devil? That doesn't make any fucking sense to me. If you believe in God, you believe in the devil. And if you believe in the devil, you believe in demonic possession. It's that fucking simple. But this guy's crisis of faith was a little bit more than a crisis of faith. I mean, I literally think that Steiger might have had like a learning disability for all I know, because he just it took him forever to, you know, kind of get with the program and get on the ball, if you will. And literally, it wasn't until a final scene of the movie that he finally accepts what's happening, which by that point, it's too late. By that point, I already don't care about you. I already think you're a wishy-washy little douche, and I don't care if you live or die. So, yeah, like I said, this movie doesn't inherently do anything bad. It's just everything that it does, it's been there, done that. We've seen it before in much better films with much better actors. And I'm saying this with Al Pacino and Dan Stevens in this movie, but I'm sorry, I'll take Max von Sydow and Russell Crowe over Al Pacino in this movie any day of the week. So yeah, I'm just going to say that this is a well-made exorcism movie in the sense that it looks nice. It's got a decent score. You know, the performances are decent. I'm not going to say that despite having some big names in here, none of the performances are exceptional, in my opinion. They're solid. That's it. I'm going to go with solid. So overall, you know, it's a well put together movie. It's just so, like I said, been there, done that. And then when we get to the end, it's such an unsatisfying ending. There is a legitimate ending, at least. It's not one of those movies that just stops. You know, there is a legitimate ending. I'm just saying I wasn't satisfied with that ending. It just, I don't know. It was too convenient. You know, everything was just wrapped up in a nice little package. And ultimately, when you have an exorcism that doesn't have at least multiple deaths involved, was it really an exorcism? You know, it's too convenient, too much of a contrived happy ending, if you will. And so, yeah, I'm going to leave my review at that and my general thoughts anyway, and just say that, yeah, it's an okay movie, but if you're looking for something new, different, exceptional, this is not the movie for you. I would say, you know, go back to the Pope's Exorcist. At least the Pope's Exorcist is funny too. Like Russell Crowe's legitimately funny in that movie. There are moments where Al Pacino tries to inject a little levity into this movie, but it just doesn't come off as all that funny. Not the way that Russell Crowe pulled it off in the Pope's Exorcist. So yeah, I'm going to say an okay movie, average at best. Definitely is not getting any kind of heavy recommend. If you are a huge demonic possession fan like I am, then, you know, I would say watch it. I mean, it's only an hour and 38 minutes. You know, it goes by fairly quick. I mean, the pacing's not great. But at least there are lots of rituals. I mean, there's a total of 8 rituals in the movie, and I took notes on all of them, so we'll be able to talk about them through the walkthrough. So yeah, I'm just going to say an average exorcism movie at best, with some exceptional actors in it that just kind of leave me a little disappointed when it's all said and done. So that's it for me.
All right, let's move on over to Dawn for your thoughts on The Ritual.
This is easily the most generic and completely forgettable entry in the genre I think we've covered so far. I mean, you know, we've talked, I think, in the past about I know we've covered other exorcism films, you know, the actual Exorcist reboot in particular, but yeah, the paint by numbers, just generic quality of this one is just it's so obvious that it's actually painful. I mean, the plot description we gave at the beginning of the movie is just every exorcism effort that, you know, we've seen in the last 10, 15 years. The story is so generic. I legitimately lost track of the movie for 30, 40 minutes, and I knew exactly where we were just by glancing over at the screen once. So yeah, there's very little about this one that stands out. Even like they said, like what Venom was saying, there's 6 or 7 attempts at what's going on in here, and they're all practically the same. It's the same chanting in Latin, it's the same sprinkling of holy water, it's the same demonic voices, it's the same taunts and insults. I mean, the devil can't even come up with new insults. I mean, come on. For such an almighty being, taunting a guy about his lack of faith. I mean, jeez, come on, come up with some new material here. You're an eons old being, and the best thing you can do is come up with is, hey, what about that girl you didn't save? Bet she's thankful, isn't it? I mean, yeah, you can't even come up with anything new or interesting to taunt the guy with. Yeah, it's just so bland. It's so generic. It's so by the numbers or fill in the blanks kind of possession movie that I I couldn't even place where the film took place because all the names seem to be Greek, but nobody speaks with a Greek or German or whatever European accent. It just seems like everybody's just talking normally, and whatever the hell Pacino was going for, I have no idea what the hell that accent was. I mean, you're better at it than I am. I had no idea what the hell that accent was, but yeah, it just seems like a bunch of high quality people doing work. Very little of it's interesting, very little of it's creative, very little of it's unique, and even less of it's interesting. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, does it look good? Does it, tick all the, high end, high quality, glossy boxes that you'd expect for I assume this had to have gone, to theaters somewhere. I mean, Al Pacino and Dan Stevens, that thing's getting a theatrical release somewhere.
Actually, yeah, to answer your question, Don, it did play in theaters out here in LA for about a week, but sadly I missed it. That was only a few weeks ago, so
Okay, yeah. Yeah, like I was gonna say, I mean, that kind of star power, that thing's going to theaters somewhere. But I mean, despite how well it looks, I'm really just getting sick of calling a movie good just because it looks the part, just because there's the high end studio gloss, calling it watchable based on that's just it doesn't do it for me. Yeah, there's nothing here that's worthwhile unless you're able to find some value in the creative crew finding something about you know any of these performances. If you're a fan of anybody, I mean, I guess that's the only thing about this. But yeah, for most everything else, I don't see much interest or value in this one. It's probably one of I can't say it's the weakest one just because there's some action to be had in the possession scenes because there's so many of them, but again, they're just so generic, they're so bland, they're so forgettable. It kind of just feels like what's the point? So yeah, I guess that's pretty much all I can say because I can't really come up with anything else that's not a spoiler. I mean, not that there's anything to spoil, but yeah, there's just very little about this one that speaks to any regard. So yeah, back to you, Mike.
All right, so I am pretty much aligned with Dawn. This was pretty terrible. I, I just don't see many redeeming qualities in this. Like the fact that Al Pacino was in it gave me a little hope going in that, like, well, maybe his performance will be good because it's Al Pacino or memorable. Pope's Exorcist was referenced, and like I wasn't like a big fan of Pope's Exorcist either, but at least like Russell Crowe's character, like it felt like they were trying to do a little something different to like spice up the subgenre. But this, it's like they just took every lazy recycled trope and threw it into 90 minutes. And like we barely get any like story, any character development. Is It's the Exorcist stuff starts pretty early into the movie to where like I'm like I don't even really care what's going on. And just I mean the synopsis I read at the beginning is literally all the movie has to offer. So like if you're fine with just like another Exorcist movie or exorcism movie that you've seen 50 times before and you don't need anything different from it, I guess give this a chance. But even then, it's not like it's good in what it's doing. Like I didn't even find it good because I can watch like genre movies that I've seen before if they actually do it well, but I don't know. I this one was a struggle bus for me to even like hold my attention. Um I don't even know much more than I have to add because Don pretty much covered all my criticisms of it. It's just I don't see much redeeming in this. Unless like these exorcism movies are like your favorite subgenre and you just want to see it for that alone, fine. And I mean, some of the cast, I would say the cast is like if you judge the cast based on their other work, you would assume that this movie would be better because that's kind of what I was hanging my hat on early in the movie because I was like, oh, it's not just Pacino. Like there are other actors that are familiar. So I was like, maybe they will carry what's kind of like a run of the mill exorcism story into being like a decent movie. But I couldn't even call this decent. To me, it's just mediocre. Al Pacino, I don't know what he was doing with his voice, if he was trying to do an accent or if it's just a 85-year-old Al Pacino struggling to get through a movie. Because
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I had no idea where the hell he was going with that.
yeah, I
I
was a
mean,
little. Oh.
I mean, Venom picked Greek or Russian. That that's fine with me. I mean, his name is Greek, but he sounds Russian. Yet he's also kind of half Jewish, half German.
That's what I mean. I thought he
Yeah,
was a Russian Jew, and it's like there's no way he can be a Russian Jew. He's a priest.
yeah, and I don't know if like he took this role because he was bored or he owed someone a favor because it's like it's
I thought he was retired and trying to raise his what grand trying to raise his
No,
kids.
kids. Yeah, he just had a kid.
like well because like a lot of times when you see an actor whose pay grade is over kind of like the low budget movie they're in, you assume, oh, they must have burnt the budget on that guy. But I don't even think the budget of this movie would get him the kind of payday you would assume Al Pacino would get. Like if it was in like an A movie and they said, hey, Mr. Pacino, come do this one scene and you're gonna get a lot of money, you understand why he's going to drag himself to that set and do it. But like, I can't imagine his payday for this movie would make it worth it on those grounds. So I'm like, I don't know how they got him to do this. Um, I
I can look up the IMDb thing real fast because maybe there's some kind of trivia about why he took the role. Um, I can look it up real fast.
Hey,
go
give
ahead,
it a
yeah, go
shot.
ahead. And I'll just continue. Well, I don't even know how much more I have to say. I'm trying to think. Like, yeah, I'm not sure if it was Dawn or Venom or both, but the conclusion is kind of like, it goes out with a whimper. It's just there's nothing this movie really does to like at least give you a surprise, or it's like even the possessed girl, like everything that she does or says, it's like out of like the playbook of everything you'd
Mhm.
expect. It's just I don't know. Familiar is not always bad, but in this case, it's so overly familiar that it feels like every step that's coming before it happens.
Well, the trivia was a bust. There's absolutely nothing on IMDb.
Oh.
No one cares enough about the movie to find trivia.
Well, that was a bust.
Uh, all right. Anyway, yeah, that's for general thoughts for me. So back to you, Venom.
Yeah, the modern exorcism movie is definitely on a downward spiral. Like, it seems like the average exorcism movies that we get lately is stuff like The Exorcism and The Devil's Conspiracy, which are all, and then this one, which is, you know, fairly disappointing. It seems like the really good modern exorcism movies are the ones that try to do something a little bit different. Think Late Night with the Devil, think When Evil Lurks. Even though When Evil Lurks is not a true exorcism movie, it is a possession movie in its purest form. It's just a different kind of one. So you know, those are exceptional examples of the possess slash exorcism subgenre. I mean, if you're looking for the masterpiece, the modern day masterpiece, I would recommend Metamorphosis from 2019 from South Korea. That was my number 3 movie of 2019. I absolutely adore the movie. I sang its praises when it first came out. Very original, very different, very violent. That's another thing. I mean, The Ritual, this movie could have been PG, like not even PG-13, straight up PG. But at least with something like Metamorphosis, you know, you get the gore, you get the blood, you get a very compelling story, a very compelling exorcist, the family, just everything about Metamorphosis is amazing. So if you really want to see an exceptional exorcism movie, check out Metamorphosis. But yeah, I am one of those people where exorcism is one of my favorite subgenres, like demonic possession, supernatural. It's always been the kind of stuff that I gravitate towards. The Exorcist being my favorite movie of all time, it kind of tracks. But yeah, man, the modern exorcism movie, I mean, we get above average entries like The Pope's Exorcist, you know, periodically, but it's not really enough to really set the genre on fire by any stretch. So sadly, yeah, The Ritual is just going to end up being one of those forgotten movies. I mean, I've already forgotten half of it. If it wasn't for me taking notes, I wouldn't be able to do a walkthrough. Because as Don already said, it is so generic and so repetitive. Like I said, 8 rituals throughout the movie, and most of them are the same, if not all of them. You know, the results might not be the same in every single one. In fact, the results are different for all of them. You know, basically, it's the movie showing you the projection of, or the progression, the progression of the demonic possession within Emma. I mean, we never even find out who this demon is. Like they spend a whole ritual basically trying to find the demon's name, and he ends up giving us the name, but in Latin, and the movie doesn't translate any of the Latin for some reason. And there are whole conversations in this movie in Latin between, you know, like Al Pacino's character and a random demon, or there was a dark cloaked figure in the movie that, you know, seemed like it was some kind of representative of hell, where he was having whole conversations with the priest in Latin, but not translating anything. So, you know, all of us who don't know Latin are just obviously from the context and, you know, the tone of voice and things like that, you can still kind of get the general gist of what they're saying. But yeah, man, if you're going to have whole conversations in Latin, give us some goddamn subtitles. I want to know what the hell they're saying. Latin is so gnarly too. Like demonic Latin always gets so dark and like, just it's like an ugly form of language. I want to know what they're saying. You know, that's just me personally. Maybe some people don't care, but I kind of care. So anyway, let's quit bitching and let's go ahead and get into this story. The walkthrough is going to be fairly simple because the majority of the film is just a series of rituals. So let's get to it. Basically, we meet our priest. Like I said, Dan Stevens plays Father Joseph Steiger. He is the newly appointed head of this parish that they are at. One day he gets a visit from the Archbishop, Bishop Edwards, played by Patrick Fabian, basically telling Father Steiger that a priest and a possessed girl are going to be coming here to your parish, and they want to perform an exorcism here. The reason we're doing it here is because everyone else that we spoke to basically said, no, absolutely not. And basically they just didn't, since Dan Stevens was a young priest and a young head of the parish, they basically just didn't give him a choice. They basically just said, nope, it's happening here. You have nothing to say about it. Then we meet Al Pacino, who plays, of course, Dr. Theophilus Reisinger. He is a very old man, easily probably in his 70s or 80s, but maybe even later. Just a very old, decrepit man who kind of, walks slowly with a hunch and everything, or a humpback. We've already talked about the accent. I mean, I had trouble even understanding what he was saying at times, like not necessarily because of the accent, but because of some of the soft talking. Like, I wish I would have seen this in theaters, because man, the audio range on this, the soft stuff is just way too soft. And then once something loud happens, it blows my damn speakers up. It was really annoying watching this with the dynamic range as wide as it was. So yeah, that was annoying. Anyway, we eventually do meet the Mother Superior of this. I don't know. I mean, they call it a parish, yeah, because there is a convent attached to the parish where there's some nuns there and some sick people and whatnot, blah blah blah. So we meet a few of the different nuns that are there: Sister Rose, Sister Camilla, Sister Antonella, just different sisters that we'll meet throughout the movie. And we end up getting, well, let's just go into it. Basically, there's very little setup. Like I said, basically what I just told you is the setup of this movie. There's very little setup. It just kind of goes right into it. So let's get into it. Day one, ritual one. One thing that I did have a question about that kind of breaks some of the rules, and I'd be interested to hear if Don or Mike have an opinion on this. I don't understand how a possessed person can stand on hallowed ground. Like, this is one of the first times we've ever seen an exorcism movie where the exorcism is performed in a church, in an actual parish, right? Like, I didn't think a possessed person could stand on, like a demon can't be on hallowed ground, whether they're in a human or not. Like, that's what I thought. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Again, I'm not much of a Bible reader, but I always thought that demons can't be on like church ground or hallowed ground, things like that. So, that already leaves me scratching my head 10 minutes into the movie. All right. So,
yeah, I don't understand either, but
I mean, I'm not a Catholic I grew up Catholic, but, obviously as an adult, I don't practice any religion at all. So, maybe there's something in the Bible that says maybe a possessed innocent person can stand on hallowed ground, even though they're possessed by a demon. The fact that the person is an innocent, I don't know. But yeah, it left me scratching my head. So whatever, I'll leave it alone for now. All right, so let's get into it. Ritual number one. We see Emma. She is tied to a chair, but Father Steiger, who is not familiar with Emma, later on in the film, we're going to find out that Father Theophilus actually has a history with Emma, but Father Steiger doesn't know anything about Emma, and he doesn't want her to be tied down. Obviously, in 99% of the possession movies, during an exorcism, you tie down the possessed person. Well, Father Steiger didn't want her tied down, so they basically let her lie on the bed. The first ritual was fairly uneventful. We get some prayers, and eventually we see Emma, the possessed girl, start reacting negatively to some of the prayers. She doesn't say anything or do anything too evil during this first ritual. You just see her kind of writhing there, not being very happy. And then finally, the ritual ends with Father Theophilus throwing some holy water on her. She reacts violently, and that's the end of ritual one. Very quick. He even says early on in the film that some of the rituals may be quick, that I will stop them at my discretion. So we might be a minute, we might be 9 hours. It's up to what I want. So that's the end of the first ritual. Now, at the end let's get into the second ritual. The second ritual, a lot of the same, more prayer. This time, the demon or the possessed girl actually gets up from her chair. Remember, she's not tied down because Father Steiger didn't want her tied down, worrying about her health and safety. But during the second ritual, she ends up standing up and grabbing Sister Rose by the hair, literally grabbing a clump of hair and lifting her off the ground. This is what I'm talking about. Some of the stuff that Father Steiger witnesses, but still thinks that this girl is not possessed, grabs Sister Rose by the hair, lifts her up off the ground. The camera shows that her feet are not touching the ground. Eventually, her scalp gives out, and basically a large piece of her scalp is ripped out. We see the clump of hair still in Emma's hand. We see Sister Rose on the ground with a large blood spot on her head. Probably the most blood you're going to see in this fucking movie, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. And that's the end of Ritual 2. As soon as Sister Rose is attacked, they end the ritual. After Ritual 2, this is when Al Pacino and Dan Stevens kind of get back together, and Pacino's like, see, this is why we need to tie down the possessed people. It's not like they're just going to sit there and take it. It's not like the demon wants to be exorcised. So, and of course, don't forget, Father Steiger still isn't really buying into any of this stuff at this point. It's only been 2 rituals. But he laments and lets Father Theophilus go ahead and tie her down for all the subsequent rituals after this. So ritual number 3 is where Emma starts to kind of exude some of the basic tropes of demonic possession. She's drooling. She's got the glossed over eyes. Eventually, the priest says a prayer, and right at the end of the prayer, Emma screams a hellish scream that can be heard all through the parish. And then that's the end of Ritual 3. Like I said, folks, the rituals kind of they come quick and they go right by. Some of them have some subsequent or some important plot points. A lot of them don't. A lot of them are just there to fill time. So whatever. So here we go to Ritual 4. Ritual 4, more of the same prayer, holy water. But this is the first time that Emma's eyes go solid black. And this is the first time that she starts speaking Latin. She also pukes up some black viscous thing through, something else we've never seen in an exorcism movie. Somebody throwing up black viscous liquid. How original. Ritual 4, she's puking up black stuff. She's speaking in tongues. And then we actually hear the demon's voice in English for the first time during Ritual 4. And this is, what Don was talking about, the very unoriginal insults. Emma talking smack to Father Theophilus, talking smack to Father Steiger. Just really generic stuff that we've seen before. Nothing too special. And then that one kind of just ends with the demon kind of screaming again, very similar to Ritual 4. Ritual 5, once again, we get more Latin, and this time we're getting whole conversations between Father Theophilus and the demon in Latin. And again, no goddamn subtitles, so I don't know what the fuck they're saying. So they could be saying some fucking epic biblical shit, and we'll never know. So... And I'm not going to learn a dead language just so I can enjoy my exorcism movies a little bit more. That was a little disappointing, but what are you going to do?
And based on how generic the rest of the film is, there's a fat chance of that happening.
There you go. All right. So after Ritual 5 is where Dan Stevens and Al Pacino's characters start to kind of butt heads. They start to get into arguments. Father Steiger basically is telling Theophilus, look, this girl needs a doctor. He's already witnessed Sister Rose get scalped by a girl who weighs about 100 pounds soaking wet. It's not like this is a UFC fighter who lifted her off the ground by her hair. This is a little girl. He witnessed that. He witnessed, I forgot to mention that during Ritual 5, one of the nuns got their hands crushed. But we don't know how, because basically what she was doing was she was trying, Emma got free from her restraints. And this Sister Mary Joseph, was just trying to help restrain her. And then suddenly we just hear a crack. And when she pulls her hand out from underneath Emma, her hand is mysteriously crushed. Once again, that doesn't make sense there, Father Steiger. How are you going to look at this girl and say that she needs a psychiatrist? But so, like I said, this is the part of the film where I really started to lose any kind of desire, to get behind Father Steiger. He was just so blinded He didn't want to accept the things that he's looking at with his own fucking eyes, the things that he's hearing with his own fucking ears, and he still just can't bring himself to accept it, which just irked the shit out of me. So yeah, sorry, Dan Stevens. I usually love you, but your character in this movie sucks complete ass. So what are you gonna do? So at that point, they go back to perform yet another ritual. It is now Ritual 6. Ritual 6 is more of the black viscous puke. And then in this one, Emma breaks free again, which kind of freaks out Steiger. Like at this point, Steiger is having a major crisis of faith. Like he's having dreams. At one point, he actually finds himself looking at Sister Rose a little bit longer than he should. You know, and you guys know Dan Stevens is a young guy. I mean, he can't be any later than like the character, I mean, is probably not more than mid to late 30s in this movie. So he's still a young, virile guy. And yeah, he kind of caught himself looking at Sister Rose a little bit longer than he should have. And then in the very next ritual, the demon kind of throws it back at him, of course, as usual, because the demon's always going to jump at the easiest insults and, you know, with the information that they have. So yeah, kind of annoying. Ritual 6 ends with Father Steiger freaking out and just leaving. Like Father Steiger and Theophilus almost get into a fight during the ritual because of Father Steiger just freaking out so much and not being able to handle it and blah, blah, blah. After Ritual 6, this is when Theophilus and Father Steiger have a heart-to-heart, because Steiger doesn't want, you know, he doesn't want to do this anymore. He's like, that's it. I want this girl out of here, and I want you out of my parish. And this is when Pacino kind of gives the backstory. And this is when we find out that Pacino has actually been with Emma almost her entire life. As it turns out, Emma was possessed as a child. As a very young child, she was possessed by a demon. Again, Father Theophilus gave her, you know, her rites of exorcism. But then just like what's happening currently, there were people there who basically didn't agree with what Father Theophilus was doing, and they wanted him to stop. So basically he lamented and said, okay, fuck it. If you all want me to stop, I'm going to stop. And what ended up happening was he stopped the exorcism, and then Emma didn't display any signs of possession for years and years and years, to the point where they even kept in touch. Like Emma wrote letters to Theophilus throughout the years. Everything was always fine. And then suddenly, recently, the demon reemerged. And this is the same demon that was in Emma when she was a child, because the demon remembers Father Theophilus. Throughout some of the rituals, you know, he makes comments, you know, about how, oh, you know, you've aged poorly, you know, things like that. So obviously the demon just kind of took a back seat for a little while, you know, basically probably just letting Theophilus think that he won. And then eventually, you know, he comes back. And then this is why Pacino, you know, Father Theophilus says to Father Steiger, I will never give up on her, because I already gave up on her once thinking that we did the job, and then the demon comes back. So I'm not giving up on her again. And of course, you know, Emma is displaying the usual, you know, injuries and things that a girl that's gone through exorcism, you know, has gone through: bruises, dehydration, you know, sweaty, patchy skin. Just, you know, she just looks disheveled as all hell. But the father, like I said, isn't going to give up on her, because he gave up on her once before. So, and once again, it's just this entire conversation just makes me dislike Father Steiger even more. Like I said, I understand being a skeptic. I absolutely do. But once you see and witness shit with your own eyes and ears, there's no more denying it, especially when you're not the only one seeing it. It's literally a room full of people seeing all this stuff. It can't be denied anymore. So stop being an idiot, Father Steiger. Okay. Anyway. All right. So Ritual 7. Now, During Ritual 7, we have a new sister replace the sister who had her hand crushed. Basically, Sister Rose, who had she was scalped earlier in the film. She was replaced by Sister Mary Joseph, and then Sister Mary Joseph gets her hand crushed, and now she's swapped out for Sister Camilla, and Sister Camilla is Spanish. She's a Spanish speaker. So during this ritual, we actually hear the demon speaking in Spanish under the guise of Sister Camilla's mother. Sound familiar? Why you do this to me, Demi? Yeah, Exorcist fans, you should be really pissed off that this movie's doing this. So yeah, directly out of the fucking Exorcist, the demon pretends to be the mother of this sister, basically saying the same thing. Why did you let me die? Blah, blah, blah. The sister ends up freaking out, yelling at the demon. But I'll give the sister more credit than I'll give Steiger, because Steiger freaked out during the previous ritual. When Steiger freaked out, he continued to freak out until he finally left the room. Sister Camilla freaks out for like a minute, but then she kind of realizes, whoa, that's not my mother. And then she starts yelling expletives at the demon in Spanish, which I fucking loved. Just calling the demon a cocksucking asshole. Just, I loved it. Basically saying, you're not my mother. Stop trying to pretend to be my mother. Rot in hell, blah, 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 blah. Me being Spanish, I like when Spanish women get spicy on film. So that made me happy. And then the that particular exorcism or that ritual ends with the demon sliding the bed across the floor so that it hits Sister Camilla on the shins, injuring her. It doesn't break her legs or anything, but it does injure her. So yeah, that's 3 sisters in a row that this demon is taken out. Like I said, that's Ritual 7. And then right when they take a pause, like Ritual 7's over, they end up leaving the room to kind of have a conference, like everybody but one of the sisters. One of the sisters stays in the room with Emma, who's still tied to the bed. And then everybody else goes outside. When they come back into the room, the sister is in shock and Emma is nowhere to be found. Emma has escaped the bed. They ask the sister what happened, and she's like, I don't know. I turned around and then I turned right back and she was completely gone, like magic, like vanished. But then they see the door to the catacombs has been left open. So they realize that Emma has run into the catacombs. So they decide to go chase after her. The final ritual, like I said, takes place in the catacombs, kind of on the fly. Definitely not what they had prepared for, but they're running out of time just because of the injuries that Emma's displaying. They know that her body is not going to be able to take this for very much longer, so they know they have to finish this. So eventually, they corner Emma. The demon is still very much in control, is speaking in demon speak, and Father Theophilus is there with his book, his Rite of Exorcism, and he's reading his passages. But eventually Emma, or the demon, knocks the book out of the priest's hand, and Emma starts getting more violent to the point where she has to start getting held down by everybody in the room. Father Theophilus, Sister Rose, and the Mother Superior are all there, and they're holding down Emma up against a wall. But since Theophilus is one of the people holding her up, he can't pick up his book and read. So this is when Father Steiger, I guess, has his moment of redemption. I guess that's how we're supposed to fucking look at it, but whatever. He basically ends up picking up the book, pulling off a medallion that he's wearing around his neck. It's not a cross, but it's like a very ornate medallion. And then he picks up where Father Theophilus left off. He starts, he continues reading whatever he needs to read out of the book, the prayers that he needs to read. We see Emma get more and more violent. Eventually, Emma grabs Father Theophilus's crucifix off his neck, and it's a big crucifix. It's one of those big ass ones, probably like 6 to 8 inches long, maybe even bigger. She pulls it off his neck, and me being a seasoned horror fan, I'm assuming that she's about to attack somebody with it. She's going to stab someone with it violently. But then what ends up happening is Father Stevens And again, he's reading in Latin, so you don't really know what the hell he's saying. But based on the score, you hear the score start to swell up. And then he says something like he finishes a passage, and at that exact moment, Emma, like the real Emma, comes out. Her normal eyes are shown, and rather than attacking someone with the cross that she now has in her hand, the crucifix, she puts it over her heart, like right up against her skin over her heart. Of course, you get, the generic sizzle and smoke effect of a cross, hitting a possessed person. And then after a couple of seconds, everything goes quiet. The music stops, all of the shaking, tremoring, everything that was happening because of the ritual, it all stops and everything is silent. And then we just get a crawl. Then at that point, the movie basically just ends. And then we get some text at the end of the film letting us know that Father Theophilus and Father Steiger both continued to stay with the Catholic Church, obviously meaning that Father Steiger's crisis of faith ended after he himself, saved Emma. If you want to look at it that way, like I said, I'm still kind of trying to grasp what actually happened in that scene because, like I said, it's dramatic, but it almost seems like Emma just decided, oh, I'm just going to save myself. I'm just going to take the cross and put it up over my heart, and I'm good. And that was it. So yeah, very convenient ending. Like I said, we get the text at the end of the film letting us know that Father Theophilus and Father Steiger both stayed with the Catholic Church until they both died. Obviously, Theophilus died a lot sooner. By the way, this movie was technically a period piece. It takes place in 1928, but since the entirety of the movie takes place within a parish, they're dressed the exact same way they would be dressed today. So it almost takes away the period piece element of it all, because it's not like there's classic cars or classic fashions or anything there. Everybody's dressed in nun outfits, priest outfits, you know what I mean? Like they're dressed exactly the way they would be dressed in 2025. So whatever. I mean, obviously the real event took place in 1928, so they have to kind of keep that timeline, I guess. And then the last little piece of text just lets us know that Emma went on to live a normal life and never displayed signs of being possessed ever again. So apparently, Father Steiger and Father Theophilus did indeed save Emma. And that's the end of our film, folks. A rather lame ending. I don't want to say lame, but just uneventful, not exciting. And it's too bad, too, because I forgot to mention that there is a nice sense of tension throughout most of this movie. It's not quite as thick as like Long Legs or something, but there's a nice sense of tension throughout. The score works really well to build that tension, but then it just kind of fizzles out at the end and leaves you wanting more. So, yeah, there you go, folks. That is The Ritual 2025. Back to you, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of went out with a whimper.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and there was so much, like, the movie was so generic, but then they don't give us a lot of elements that some generic exorcism movies give us, like the name of the demon or I don't know, more history. Like I said, spending time with the possessed person before they're possessed, so we actually give a shit about them once they actually do go through an exorcism. Yeah, this movie definitely missed a lot of marks, but everything that they did hit is, just the same stuff that we've seen before. Like there is literally nothing original about this movie whatsoever. Like even something like The Exorcism, which I absolutely hated from last year, still had a decent, element of, acting and once again, another crisis of faith, blah, blah, blah. What's funny is that the exorcism scene is the worst part of The Exorcism. If any of you guys actually saw it, it's everything leading up to the exorcism that's actually pretty good. So yeah, that's a weird one too. But yeah, I don't know. I really hope that the possession / exorcism subgenre gets a boost because, like I said, it is one of my favorites, and it definitely does me a lot of it just makes me feel bad to see one of my favorite subgenres just falling into obscurity. I mean, in the 70s and part of the 80s, it was like the pinnacle. Exorcism movies were like the scariest, most awesome horror movies available. And just as the decades have gone along, it's just become more and more of a cliche.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I feel I feel
Mhm.
like the disappointing part is like the trope element, though that takes care of itself because it's not that you can't have tropey stuff in your movie, but every time we get these kind of like 80 to 90-minute exorcism movies, like going into it, I just have a feeling that like, okay, it's gonna be kind of like that rapid crash style of like they're just gonna check off the list of like, well, this is what's supposed to happen in a exorcist or exorcism movie, and they just do the bare minimum and they don't add anything to it. Once in a while we get a movie that at least like tries to add different elements, but overall I'm just like, do something different with the characters, or just make something different. I will say like foreign movies, because you did list off a few, at least like some of those try to bring something different and new, and like the tropes we get in those, it doesn't come off as bad because at least everything surrounding the tropes,
Mhm.
it feels like more interesting, and you actually are invested in the characters. But a movie like this is just, you just kind of don't care.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot better exorcism movies out there, especially from the last like 5, 6 years or so. So I'd say check those out. Check out Metamorphosis. Check out The Pope's Exorcist. Check out When Evil Lurks. You're going to have a much better time with movies like that. When Evil Lurks sometimes gets a little too dark, even for its own good. I love it because of that, but I know it might get a little dark for some people. A certain animal attack might be a little much for some parents to watch, but yeah, I still highly recommend it. I mean, it was all three of our number one movies for 2 years ago, so
Even
that's got to
like
say something.
even like some of Joko Anwar's movies, like
Yes.
will
Mhm.
get it done. For people looking for, it's not apples to apples comparison necessarily, but there's enough that I would call it like adjacent to these types of movies that I
Yeah.
think fans of them would like those too.
Absolutely. Oh, The Cleansing Hour too. That was
Hmm.
from like 5 or so years ago. That was another one. That one kind of laid the groundwork for Late Night with the Devil, and then Late Night with the Devil kind of perfected it. But yeah, Cleansing Hour is another really good one from a few years ago. So check those out.
True. All right. Well, now we will begin our ritual of letting people know where else they can hear us. So, Venom, do you have anything new out since our last recording?
Unfortunately, no, nothing new. We've had a couple of postponements over the last couple of weeks. So, Creature Comforts episode 39 is still the latest episode where we looked at humanoids from the deep. So, if you feel like hearing three idiots talk about fish raping women, then yeah, join us for that one. We had an absolute blast with it. So check out that episode. Episode 40 has been picked. It's just a matter of getting together and recording that one. Unfortunately, the main show and the Crystal Lake gift shop both have been postponed over the last couple of weeks, so nothing new to report there. Crystal Lake gift shop, episode 9, Root of All Evil, is still the latest episode there. And I'm not even sure what the last main show was. I'm sure Mike will speak on that. But yeah, nothing else new from me. I'm not sure if my episode of the Joe Blow Horror Show has been released yet. But as soon as I know that it's definitively out there, I will let everyone know about that one. And that's it for me.
All right. How about you, Don?
Not much in the realm of podcasting, but I do have something available. Like Venom said, the latest Creature Comforts is out and about. I think we have the date set, but I think it's one of those where it's at the whim of Derek, whether or not he's going to be able to, get off or have something with his family or his pets or something that's going to postpone it. So I think we have a date set, but beyond that, not much. Waiting on the last two roundtables that I've done. Both of those were live streamed, so I don't know when they're going to be available as podcasts. First one is on cheesy B movie werewolves, and the other one is on 1980s monsters and creature features. So both of those were a lot of fun. Waiting on them to become available for podcast listeners instead of live streamed. But the main one that I alluded to earlier is a new short story of mine that has been selected. I wrote it as a just a brief spur of the moment, like a flash fiction thing. It's not even 1,000 words, so it's going to take you a few minutes. But I wrote it for a friend of mine. He's a horror author named Patrick McNulty. Last name is McNulty, and he does a monthly thing where he runs a flash fiction contest, and he invited me to join in because I started, doing a bit more book reading and writing and such like that. So he invited me to participate. And one of my stories is selected for his flash fiction for June. It's a story called Revolution. You can find it on his site. Let me switch over because it's a little convoluted to find it, but it's there. So it's on his site, patrickmcnulty.ca. You go to the top where it says Midnight Feed, and a scroll down menu will say Horror Flash Fiction Contest. Select that, and it'll take you to an entry page where it'll give you the details about the contest and all the other, the stuff that he wants for like what the contest is. And then at the very bottom, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom. It'll tell you all of the entries that you can read, and through there you'll find mine. I don't know if there's an easier way to do it, but that's the way I found it. So you can go ahead and find that. There should be other entries over the coming months because it was a lot of fun to do, and I should be doing more. But if you want to find a new piece of mine, you can see where I stand in terms of writing. So I guess, that's pretty much it. Just waiting on all the other stuff to come out.
Okay. And then as far as I go, I did end up recording my guest spot on the Sin Bin show, the Vinegar Syndrome monthly show with the 22 Shots guys. The monthly main feature pick was the Dirty Work 4K, also the dirtier version, as they say. That was released as part of the package. So we all talked about that. And then we all also did an individual pick. And mine was The Wait from 2023. It's actually a Spanish film. Kind of like, it's really a genre bender, which I am going to talk about it more on the main show when we record. There's like Western elements, thriller elements, folk horror elements, a little bit of body horror. There's a lot going on in it, and I really thought it was an outstanding movie. And I probably wouldn't even known about it if for not doing the show, because it got me onto the Vinegar Syndrome website to look up like the different partner distributors and like what the releases were. So check that out. It's not up yet. It recorded last Thursday. They're usually pretty quick about it, so I would imagine by the time people are listening to this, it'll be up just on their main 22 Shots YouTube feed. And if you want to be horrified, that is video feed too, so I will be on camera for that. So
Yikes.
And that's it, because our other stuff got postponed, as Venom already mentioned. As far as our next episode, I don't know if we go back to the theater or not. I haven't really had a chance to look ahead today.
We are not in the theater this week. The next time we're in the theater is July 11th for Skill House, which is playing nationally. I checked. So basically, I read the synopsis. It looks like it's basically a bunch of social influencers are like kidnapped and brought to a house, and they have to play a game. Blah blah blah. Very Would You Rather, I guess.
That's a national release.
I mean, it's playing at AMC, so
okay.
I will say maybe it's not a huge release like on 3,000 screens or anything, but it's playing at an AMC. So If I don't have to go to like an independent theater to see it, then I consider it a wide release.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check to see if it's
Yeah.
playing here.
And then the week after that, July 18th, is the I Know What You Did Last Summer remake.
I thought that came out the 11th. Oh.
Oh, I thought it said Skill House the 11th. Let me look again, because I thought I looked at it right. Let's see here. I got the app open. I've got Skill House, July 11th. Yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer, July 18th. So back-to-back weeks. Sweet.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, that's gonna do it. We will find something to cover on the next episode, as we always do. But thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Fresh Cuts. Let's say bye to the listeners.
Later.
Pacino really got to work on his German accent, man.
All our heroes are getting old. Peace.
Yeah.